haven't taped down your paper, it'll slide around while you run the rolling ruler on it. And taping it down to the tablecloth may be difficult, so you may want to peel that back. But the reason why we use blue tape is that we can peel it off without tearing the paper. And this is probably the cheapest way to do it. I personally like the removable Scotch tape, which is really expensive. But what's nice about that is that it's also clear when you want to scan things. So I'm going to start off with, so how do you find a rectangle? How do you find the center of something, right? So we're going to take this and say you go from corner to corner. That helps me find the center of the page. You could also measure it off, but I'm lazy. So there's the center line there. And so this is what we call a layout pencil. So I'm going to take my scale, and I know that my site is, I'm going to use the 20 scale. And so I know that my site is 60 feet wide. So when you're measuring something to mark it for scale, typically you use a little V mark rather than just a tick mark. So I centered on 30, here's 60, right? So now I know how wide it is. And check it. You also can check it with the edge of the paper to see you're running parallel. And let's see. I'll just use this as the end. It's 60 by 100. Now in front of that is a 5-foot setback, a 5-foot sidewalk, and a 10-foot planter strip. So there's the back of the sidewalk, there's the front of the sidewalk, and there's the curb. And this would be planted with grass. Okay, so then I'm gonna take my fat pen and I'm gonna create the property lines. And that you give it a little hangover wiggle, like you had a hard night. And the reason why I use the fat pen is you're going to have a lot of lines here, and you want to be able to find the stuff that's where is the limit of my property. So, and the reason why you're doing it kind of loose and wiggly is that you're eventually going to take this in and show it to Diane at the city. And if your drawing is a little too precise and everything's really clean, or you did it on a computer, looks like you've decided. It's finished. Look how, everything is so sharp. You want it kind of loose because it's really kind of a concept. I'm just kind of thinking about it this way, right? So and so I'll continue that with a fine pen. That's somebody else's property. There's the edge of the sidewalk, and there's the curb, and there's the grass. Now I've got, let's see. Refresh?
Refresh.
Somebody?
Okay, we're just trying to get the.
Oh, it did something different. Okay.
No, that's you. That's that one. The screen's.
It's just from the projector. It's because we've unplugged this.
Oh, okay.
We're trying to get this connected.
Oh,
Trying to hook it up.
okay. Sorry. The AV Club has got this worked out. So I found out that my let's see, minimum lot width was 40 feet. Well, we know now that this is 60 and this is 100. So I've got a 6,000 square foot lot. And let's see, my front setback is 10 feet, so I'll take my scale, check, make sure I still got 20. Because if you flip this around and you start drawing different things at different scales, it'll be a hot mess. You don't want that.
What's that trick you showed me with the little clip?
So if you take a binder clip or a piece of tape or whatever that lets you know that this end is up, right? So don't be flipping things around. Binder clip fits on here really nicely, and for $3 you can buy a little plastic thing that has the manufacturer's name on it. So but a binder plick is 19 cents. So I have a 10-foot front setback. I have a 20-foot rear setback, so I'm going to mark 10 and 20. And this is in the middle of the block, so it's not a corner, so I only have a 5-foot setback on each side. So I'm going to take the rolling ruler, and there's my side setback, there's my other side setback, there's my, and typically you're going to be pulling it toward you as you mark, because if you push it, particularly if you're using an ink pen, it'll just blur the ink, and also you get it all over the edge of your thing. So here's my rear setback at 20 and my front at 10. And I'm going to mark that so we can see it graphically. This is 20 feet, right? This is 5 feet. This is 5 feet. And the way you mark dimensions is vertical line, horizontal line between them, and then a hash mark. This is I'm measuring from here to here. And if that space gets a little small visually, then you can just arrow in and say that's 5 feet. And then in front here we have a 10-foot setback. So now I know that I've got to fit my building inside of this rectangle. And as it turns out, I happen to know that my building is 32 feet. Again, use the red layout pencil because you get to go over it with black ink. And it also looks kind of cool when you're done. So I know it's 32 feet wide. And it is 64 feet deep. And I know this because you might actually be able to find this building in your set of paper dolls there. And I know where my stair is because we've drawn this one a million times. It's in the center of the building. And it is 10 feet wide. And that's important because I want to be able to get a walkway going there, right, all the way out. And I also have, I'm going to have a entry off the front. So now I can go back in and draw the wiggly line, pretending I didn't draw this with a ruler, because you can erase the red pen and red pencil and your other stuff will stay there. And I've got a walkway that goes all the way out. And it also goes back here. And let's see, I only have to have, I'm going to have one parking space per unit. But when I looked in the parking section, it says I can count the parking spaces on the street. So, and it also says that I can put parking or a driveway in the setback. So I'm going to put a 12-foot driveway over here. And I'm going to put, typically, my local zoning says I have to give it, 24 feet of backup space. And then I can have an 18-foot parking space. So. And I don't have a lot of room. I've got room for, two 9-foot parking spaces back here. But I was hoping I could have a 4-unit building. So the good news is I've got room for 1.5 parking spaces on the street. And I'm going to go talk to Denise at the planning department to make sure that that they'll, the fact that I need another 5 feet of parking from my neighbor, is that going to work? My neighbor's got an existing driveway that's here, which is really convenient for my excuse of a drawing. And then my other 2 parking spaces are back here. Now, the universal symbol for a car of which you do not know its make and model is a skinny triangle, where you get to know where the car is headed into. Otherwise, if you actually try to draw a car viewed from the top, it's a little fussier. So it's possible. It's a rectangle, and you typically want the front of the car to be longer than the back, and it's got a roof, and it's got side mirrors. So that's a car that looks like a car. At the early stage, you draw a big old triangle. Pretend it's a hovercraft or whatever. So we've got a driveway that goes all the way back, that has plenty of room to maneuver. And I'm going to put the recycling bins here, because they didn't in the set. I can do that in the setback. It says so in the definitions. So that's how you figure out where it all goes. And now I have to go in and figure out that, in fact, I've exceeded the maximum coverage of 40%. I'm probably going to have to make this other unit smaller. Well, good news is I'll get a little more parking. And now I'm going to check to make sure that my concrete and buildings and stuff doesn't exceed that 70% number. But that's how you get it done. So questions on that? Bobby?
When they calculate, I mean, as you've drawn this, are you considering the pervious area, or is that the area you said was 70%?
70%,
Okay.
yeah, because I'm well over that. Well over 40.
You occupied everything.
Yeah, yeah. So typically the impervious surface number is, these days, the way that stormwater is being regulated, there's often impervious surface may trip you up. So we are now going to put in a little vault thing at great expense, and now these are all pervious pavers.
Yeah.
And now my rent just went up another $150 per unit.
Just to cover that cost.
Just to cover that cost,
Yeah.
right? So and what you'll also find in parking is there may be a provision that you could reduce the parking by a certain amount if you're close to transit or you're sharing parking or the like. But if the parking rule is so bloated that your 10% savings, it's like half a space or whatever, doesn't make sense. But people will tell you, the staff may tell you, well, you can reduce the amount of parking if you have shared parking. It's like, yeah, 10%, 15%. Usually the amount of parking reduction you're going to want is a little more substantial than that. And if you're doing your first project, really remember you want to do this as of right? Just the building permit. No variances, no special permission, no public meetings that on cable TV where people can say bad things about your mom because you want to build a building. It's happened. Was the fact that I was her son. Yeah, that was the problem. So if you do an as of right, which is just a building permit, maybe a local, like design review committee or something, that's something that's more contained and reasonable, and you're not at the discretion of other folks about whether or not the building is just right, or you're asking for permission to deviate from the rules. Now, for the English majors in the audience, what do you call someone who deviates? A deviant, right? Yeah. And you can look. It doesn't actually say deviant, but it says deviation. Will allow you to deviate from the rules. But in the back of your mind, people are thinking, so you don't want to follow our rules, huh? Okay. Well, this is going to be a long meeting then, because we feel really comfortable with our rules. So they recognize that you need to build trust at the local level. That change is only going to happen at the speed with which you build trust. And the last thing that's going to build trust is to come in and ask this community to embrace you as a deviant, right? Who doesn't want to follow the rules. So the first time out, you want to be following the rules, maybe in a clever way, but you want to get through your first project so that you can demonstrate that you did what you said you were going to do, that you're trustworthy, that there's some daylight between you and the worst possible developer who's coming from Charlotte to mess up your town, right? Okay, you're not, Peyton's got family in Charlotte. You don't have to be perfect, you know. You don't want to raise people's expectation that you're going to deliver utopia, you know. But you are clearly a better choice than that guy, right? And after a while, if you're working at the local community level, you are local champion. You are our developer. Yes, developers as a group are terrible, but Monty's our guy. Kind of like congressman, you know. Congress is terrible, but our guy is great, you know. Everybody thinks that, unless they vote the guy out. Okay, so now the trace paper piece of this is you could go in, and you definitely are going to need to tape down the trace paper because it'll fold all over the place. So now that you've got all the lines all worked out, you can go in and freehand it because you're just tracing, hence the term trace paper. Bumwad doesn't really work in this context. And you could freehand the building. And you draw in your parking.
So you guys realize that this skill that John's teaching you right now is merely good enough to get a loan without an architect in some cases. How would you like to go to the bank with having spent any money yet and see if you got your loan? How many people have wasted tons of money on architects and drawings and engineers and stuff, gone to the bank just to find out that you can't even get close to doing it? So this is very, people pay John to come just sketch for them.
There you go.
So by using the trace, we're going to get even flashier.
Landscaping.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Gonna be some trees happening here.
Most zoning codes definitely have some landscaping parking lot, you know, some zoning codes may have landscaping requirements.
Okay, so here we go. We got grass. We'll dot that later. It's my Bob Ross moment here. And let's see, this is a happy little tree. I was going to get like an afro wig for this, but you know, because Bob. It's my happy little trees. And now the idea when you're doing this is you imagine that the sun is coming from the southwest to the northeast. It's shining that way. Happy little sun. Okay, so because of that, this is going to be in shadow. And this side of the tree is going to have a shadow. And this side of the car is going to have a shadow. And let's see. So, because it's got a shadow, then that's dark on that side. And then you get the light pen to kind of spread it. And if you do this in front of an audience, they'll think you're a witch. How is that possible? You know, you draw like an angel. You know. And you have to resist the urge to say, no, I've had a lot of practice doing this, at least 2 weeks now since I went to their workshop. You know, you could do this too. It's, oh no, I don't have the gift. So the idea that, you know, so what I've shown you here is a down and dirty way that you could get the gift. And actually at this point, the looser the drawing is, the better. Because you really want people to think that it's early yet. You know, happy to take your comments and criticism and the like. Potential.
In a zoning case, if you're showing this to neighbors and stuff, and you show a zoning case with a CAD drawing out there with hard lines and stuff like that, they're gonna be like this. But if you show them like what John, it looks like it's, like John said, you've got an idea, but you're asking for their input. They don't feel so threatened, you know.
Yeah, and I'm showing that, you know, relative to the other buildings on the street, it's kind of the same.
Especially if you can draw it in front of them a little, you can draw some things. It looks like, they think they're actually helping them.
It's part of the process.
Yep.
People just want to be included.
Right.
Yeah.
So the, and this is a red Honda Accord right here.
Okay, you're showing off now, John.
Yeah, I am. All right, but the idea is that a drawing like this is not an engineering document. You know, no one's going to be able to go out and build off of this. And you're engaging at a level it's really accessible, right? At the same time, you'd like to, you know, if you can learn how to draw in front of people and not be nervous about that, it conveys a certain amount of confidence, and you're trusting them, right? Because they cannot imagine drawing rectangles on top of rectangles in front of other people, because it's like straight lines, and whoa, that's hard. Also, if you have this drawing, if you actually take it in on tracing paper on top of a printout of the plot map, and then you mark it up with their comments right in front of them, you really are engaging people, right? And also, if you decide that you want to have it all off your fancy color printer, and then you take a big old greasy fat pen and you say, no, I'm thinking maybe it will be smaller so I can get a little bit more parking in here, you know, more parking per bob. Okay, I'm definitely going to remember that. And, another tree, number 2, from Bernice. She recommended I put another tree in there. Okay.
Right.
So the idea that you're so committed to the idea of communicating effectively about this that you are willing to wreck a perfectly good drawing that looked pretty good, right? Now, you have it scanned already. You haven't lost it, you know. But if you did it on what looks like the original, or on the fancy color print, you know, you're engaging people at a level they're not used to seeing. If they're at the city, they're used to seeing finished drawings come in. And then they get to give them the sad trombone music. Wah, wah, wah. You can't do that. That doesn't have enough parking. Oh, I didn't read that part. You know. So the ability to demonstrate that you are willing to admit you've made a mistake, that you didn't read it properly, that you are willing to mess up your own drawing, you know, like you're modeling the behavior you want to see from them, which is, could we trust each other and work toward a solution, right? And if there are things that just are like a huge deal, then start making notes on the drawing, you know. Go see the people that are feared in public works. You know, go talk to the stormwater management person, you know. Okay, so I got to do all these things. Thanks. Denise, I really appreciate you taking the time, particularly right before lunch. You know. A planner who you're holding up their lunch break will be less sympathetic to your plight. So with that, you know, you take the flimsy drawing in, you know, and you have ideas and you have photographs of other things, and it's like you're inviting them into the place where you're making the sausage, right? And you're kind of vulnerable and, you know, easy to work with, and you're not like that guy from Charlotte, right? We all know that guy. White guy, balding, bad hairpiece, right? Polyester sport coat. He isn't actually that accomplished, but his dad has a lot of real estate, right? And he thinks he hung the moon, right? And he's got his product that he wants to drop into your neighborhood, right? And he can't understand why people would be upset, because some of the building doesn't look so bad. And he'll plant a lot of landscaping to apologize for the building, so don't worry. So that's the kind of the caricature.
Put crown molding in too.
Oh, crown molding, yes. Crown molding solves all kinds of problems. Or the lick and stick stone, you know, it's high quality stuff. So with this in mind, it's like you're competing against an idea people have in their head about how people in your line of work operate, a stereotype, a prejudice. So your ability to be the developer who you know, you'd like to have a beer with. You'd like to have coffee with this person. This person might be going to your church, you know. You want to get it to that level and really engage and also empathize with them. What are they dealing with now that you got the brand new comprehensive plan with the beautiful drawings and you got this crappy old zoning code with a bunch of post-it notes in it that everybody knows you can't build the beautiful vision. You imagine having that job? Giving people that sad trombone music all day long. Then they just got so excited because they went to all the meetings to make the new plan, right? And then they have a piece of property that they got when their aunt passed, and they want to come in and they want to build their popcorn shop on that building. No, you know. So this will be your friend. It's kind of a symbol or a device, a third thing to talk about, right? So if you were to walk up to somebody on the street and just strike up a conversation, that's kind of awkward. You got to be able to comment on like their Lakers jersey or something, some third thing. They got a dog, easy. Boy, that is the ugliest dog I've ever seen. That's a really big hamster. Where'd you get this dog? Or they have a baby, right? That is not the ugliest baby I've ever seen. You have a third thing to talk about, and this is your third thing, and you get to basically write sheet music for how this little opera is going to play out. We good?
I think we're good. Thank you everyone so much for just going with the flow with us. You know, we are a bunch of MacGyvers, and this is clearly first time we've tried this, but thank you FaceTime, thank you Apple.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna send you this recording as well, so you can actually watch the recording from the iPad after, and it's got much